Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we explore convenient yet effective shortcuts that will help you get ahead and move forward faster by becoming a better leader. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert, and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Developing your contact center agents using surveys is what monkeys do. Elevate your ROI on VOC by building integrity and agent engagement with the survey calibration process, only available in the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Move onward and upward by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting your $7,500 rapid results package for free. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I actually have the opportunity to have on my show somebody who was referred to me from a good friend of mine, Carol Burens. Jeofrey Bean grew up in the Boston area, and then his family moved to Michigan, where his passion about cars, the companies that make them, and the people that buy them, use them, and race them grew. Jeofrey has had and still has many interests, including loudspeaker design, documentaries, photography, jazz, hiking, and customer behavior. While in high school, a friend's dad was an engineer for Ford Motor Company and would bring home test vehicles, many for driving, and comments from drivers and passengers. One day he told Jeff that the marketing people at Ford recommended that they increase the price on a new Lincoln model they made to compete more effectively with Cadillac and to increase sales. That was the moment that Jeofrey recalls beginning his interest in consumer behavior and marketing. Throughout his career, he has worked at small, innovative businesses and dynamic Fortune 500 companies in the computer and telecommunications industries, developing and marketing products and services. In 2004, Jeofrey started Delmar Research, assisting companies in making successful decisions about the internet, marketing, and customer service to improve or innovate customer experiences. Jeofrey is the author of Customer Experience Rules and the best-selling book, The Customer Experience Revolution. He is also a part-time professor of business management at UC San Diego Extension, teaching classes in online marketing strategies and customer experience leadership. Jeofrey currently resides in beautiful San Diego, California. Jeofrey Bean, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I am absolutely ready to help you get over the hump.
Thank you, sir. Now, I've given our listeners a little bit about you. But can you tell us what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Well, I think my current passion is, other than, authoring books, it's really teaching at UC San Diego, teaching, online marketing strategies, but also customer experience leadership, because it's edgy, and it's so new compared with a lot of business courses, particularly when you compare it with traditional marketing courses. So it really gets me jazzed when somebody learns it, gets it, and then, outside of the school, they're going and making a difference.
One of the things that, as you were mentioning that, and is that you kind of talk about new and edgy, and you use the word leadership. And really, that's one reason why we started the show, the Fast Leader Show, is because leadership is so critically important when you start thinking about customer focus, employee, engagement, the whole human-centric movement. Now, I was listening to somebody earlier that talked about the English language kind of being adapted a little bit with the way that people kind of, use English for chat purposes. And they were talking about the foundation of, English and proper word sentence structure and things like that. Now, do you think that this is just an evolution of leadership, or is it really something that's totally different, a different language of leadership?
I think it's an evolution, and sometimes it's an evolution of leadership, and sometimes it's a reflection of how people interact and what they're interacting with, and for instance, if you look at the Google keyword search tool to see what words people are using to find things, now let's say that there were 6 or 7 words or phrases that they were using this month, we could look 6 months from now to see what people are looking for, if they're looking for the same exact thing, but those words could be different. So there's many evolutions taking place. There's a leadership evolution of language and communication. And then there's how do we use technology to find what we want kind of thing. So but the one thing is, it's definitely changing. It's very dynamic.
When you start talking about change and also, the legacy and the traditions of many of the things that we're talking about is that, we often have to look for inspiration. And one of the things that we do on the show is look at leadership quotes to help us with that. And Jeff, I know you've had a rich background, living a couple different places getting the experience of the East Coast, the Midwest, and,
Yeah.
Also now on the West Coast. Is there a quote or two that kind of, helps you get a better sense of direction? Can you share it with us?
Yeah, there is. And I think no matter where I've lived and no matter what situation I've been in, I always say to myself, and in the last few years, I've said it to other people, and I say, know your do-fors. And it's really knowing what can I do for you that you'll value. And whether it's my nieces and my nephews, because you certainly, as you get older, you want to be relevant and valuable to the younger generation, but also in business and in any situation. I mean, even transitioning out to San Diego years ago, what is San Diego going to do for me? What can I do for San Diego? And so to me, it's really understanding those at not only an economic level, but an emotional level, and kind of thinking, more long term. What are my do-fors?
I love the way you said that, because when I think of do-fors, there's so many different things that come to mind when I start thinking about that. Different contexts, different
Yes.
situations. I can always kind of keep myself grounded if I would just think about, okay, well, what are my do-fors?
What's my do-fors talking today? What's my do-fors with my wife over the weekend, or students ask me for help, or if I give a seminar at a company and they're asking me, well, it's not just purpose, but it's really, how can I be of value? How can I make a difference at the end of the day that's valued?
That's interesting. There's a couple words when you were saying, and you're explaining that stood out to me. And when I started thinking about do-fors, I originally went there, is that you're talking about values, talking about virtues. You start talking about, the things that really are purpose driven, for you. And I think it helps make it, all kind of applicable. It's like a lot of times we start like, okay, but how can I apply that? And I think do-fors is a great way of being able to do that. So thanks for sharing.
Oh, you're welcome. Great question.
Now, I would dare to say that, when you think about, having your own business, going through and even the story about, having the neighbor and the experimental vehicles, I know that had to be exciting. But we all have humps that we have to get over. And just going through the transitions of life, starting your own business, becoming an author, trying to speak, and influence others. All of those things represent a lot of humps that we have to get over, where we often have to ask about our do-fors, right?
Right.
Is there a story that you can share with us that has kind of really, helped ground you and helped you really establish better do-fors?
Yeah, there's many along the way, but when I go way back to, I'd say, the early '90s, when I was a lot younger, but also when I was learning a lot and working at Hayes Microcomputer. We made modems, and we were a small company in Atlanta. We also made software. And part of my job as a market planner, young Jeofrey Bean was supposed to help turn around the company. And I certainly had a really good demand side view. That's just kind of how I live and how I think. You can put as much technology and marketing and all that stuff in front of me, but I'm always thinking about how does it link to the outside world. And so I was kind of in a bind where it was like, well, you're supposed to help improve the sales of this company and turn the company around. And yet nobody inside the company, particularly engineers, weren't talking to marketing people. And then we even had engineers who divided themselves up into, let's say, synchronous engineers and asynchronous engineers, and they lived in different worlds in their mind, and they rarely left Norcross, Georgia, where our office was. And we also had our manufacturing there. And I couldn't get them to agree even on, no, we need to get rid of some old products. And by the way, you're working on some new stuff that you like to work on, but we need to have you work on things that we can introduce to the market that people will adopt and love. And so one day I got this idea that I want to take these folks to lunch, some marketing people, some engineering people, some product managers. I said, why don't we go to lunch, and then after lunch, let's go to this new place called Comp USA on Jimmy Carter Boulevard in Atlanta. And this was new at the time. To have like a supermarket kind of store, like a Staples, but it was all filled with computer stuff, with loss leaders and a section in the back for advanced products. And I walked them through the store, and I said, I just want to share with you guys, I didn't want to have the academic discussion with them about what a product life cycle was and, all that. I wanted them to see where some of the products that they designed, put their heart and soul into. I wanted them to see the cycle for themselves. So we went to the back of the store where our highest performing, most edgy modems were at the time, including software, and they were selling for almost street, suggested retail. But then by the time we made it up to the front, like where the cash registers were, a lot of the products that they had worked on just 2 years ago were in this kind of bargain bin and marked down, and they were a little freaked out, actually. And I said, this is where it happens. This is just one channel of many channels now. At the time, we were only in 2 distribution channels, and the PC-driven market was like in 9 or 10. So the company had to learn that, write products in the right channel for the right customer, and what the do-fors were for the customer. And so it was letting the outside world educate the marketing people who were very data-driven at the time, and then showing the engineers what happens in the outside world and let them see that for themselves. And we actually watched people in the buying process and shopping process, whether it was B2B or for their home office. And I think they got a really good idea of the fact that their product was viewed as an entire thing by customers, not engineering did this, marketing did this, salespeople did this. This was a modem box. The modem was in here. There was software in here, and so that when we got back, we had some really good discussions based on their experience of what they thought that they observed when people looked at a box for what's the job of the box in retail, for instance, or later on in catalogs or now on the internet. And so that was a turning point for my ability to communicate with people who basically said, well, Jeff, you work in market planning, and you really don't know what we know. And I said, but I respect what you know. I just think collectively we have to agree on what does the demand side look like? What do people do when they make decisions about buying our product or the competitor product? And then we need to use whatever each one of us knows for the company and for the customer. And so that kind of helped change the culture. And then the other thing I did was I started kind of a little silent program unannounced where I would just bring in people that matched our existing customers, and I would bring them over to engineering, and I'd introduce them, and I'd just say, hey, I'm giving a tour here. And I'd ask one of the engineers to not only demonstrate a product that they were working on. We couldn't show them anything proprietary, of course. But what I would do is I would say, could you now let the customer use that product? Let them open up the communication software and make the connection at the highest rate they could. And what the engineers learned was that they needed to do more testing with people outside that matched either our existing customers or customers would like to have. And that wasn't part of the culture at that time. It was more like engineers would design this great high-speed modem. Back then, in the old days, high-speed modems were proprietary, and then the standards would happen, and then many companies would go in. So they would basically make modems and then bring it down the hallway. An engineer would bring it down the hallway for another engineer, get the approval from a performance standpoint, but not necessarily bring our customers into the process of development and even, the box. What does the box look like? And like I asked our box people, why is there a dog on our box? And nobody knew. So it was really kind of trying to let them know that this isn't about what Jeofrey Bean wants as far as our communication across the departments and our involvement with people outside, from whether we're trying to fix an existing product, whether it's the pricing, marketing, communications, or we're trying to develop it. But it's really that whether you like it or not, you're playing in a much bigger world where there's a whole bunch of people on the demand side that are going to help us turn this company around, and we need to leverage them. And so let's get out of this. This is my opinion, your opinion. Let's go observe them, interact with them, watch them, appreciate them, and then come back with our own conclusions and exchange. Let's exchange those ideas. And that was kind of for me, it was the turning point. And while I didn't stay very long at the company after that, it totally, I think it kind of architected a basic part of who I was professionally going on, whether it was product development, marketing, service development. It was fundamental to have that outside in view and then come to some conclusions.
Thanks for sharing that story, Jeff. And a couple of things stood out to me. And one is that one of the things that I always mention a lot is that, most of the time, not some of the time, most of the time, you're not the best one to tell the story.
Yeah.
And we often forget that because we want people to buy into our thoughts and ideas. And, we want to make a difference. And we think that pushing our explanations, our ideas, our statistical analysis, all of that is what we're supposed to be doing. But in fact, for me, I learned that, in that example, you learned to be quiet.
Yes. Yes, I did.
And let folks
It was difficult at that time.
You allowed people to come to their own conclusions.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's also one thing that you mentioned there that's a very intentional practice and activity in the areas of positive psychology, and if anybody it's well worth it to educate yourself on appreciative inquiry, because one of the practices that they have in appreciative inquiry is around something called unlikely pairs. And so when you start talking about cross-mixing all of these different functional groups and personality types and individuals, what you're doing is you're creating unlikely pairs and giving them the opportunity to actually find commonality and common ground. You were the orchestrator of that. So good job. Now, if you were to think about somebody who's in a particular role, and it doesn't matter, where they are in an organization, but they're kind of fighting that whole, silo, dysfunction, function. If you were to give them one piece of advice, what would it be?
I'd say that you have to, be patient as far as taking yourself out of the center and giving information and examples that will educate but allow people to come to their own conclusions. Even if you know that it's a conclusion you've come to, I think that in some cases it's just there are people who want to come to their own conclusions. I certainly like to do that. But when you're in that crunch time where things are a little crazy and stuff has to get done or turned around, I think giving examples outside of yourself, outside of the company, hey, here's how they do it over here. Or did you see, what made this success or turnaround? And then asking good questions. Do you think we could do something like that? Do you want to try something like that? I think that would be pretty low risk, or it would be high risk, but it might be Hail Mary time, So yeah, I think taking yourself out, don't be ego invested. It's like just take yourself out of it and educate and inform and plant the seeds so that people can they only have like this far, a really short distance to go to say, oh, wow, I think I've got an idea, or I'm going to come to that conclusion. And suddenly things kind of move along. And I think as long as people know why they're coming to that conclusion too, it isn't that Jeofrey Bean said or Jim said, it's that, they've seen good company examples or other things. And it's not about me. It's about what we're trying to solve.
Yeah. And I like the way that you say that. For me, I don't care who gets the credit, as long as it moves in the direction that, it needs to go. It doesn't matter to me. I know you have, of course, your diverse background, a lot of experience, authoring, teaching, all of that stuff. You talked about teaching, being something that's important to you. But when you start thinking about your goals, what's one of your big ones?
I think the biggest one is, years from now, I want to look back and say, personally and professionally, did I make a positive difference? With younger people in teaching, it's really helping to pass along what so that they can go and be great leaders and experience makers and change makers, and so those are the big ones. More near term, certainly it's helping companies improve their customer experience and meeting people and so forth. But I really get charged. I get energized from when people, whether they're working for a company and, we're in an environment where, whether it's a seminar or we're just having a chat, when they get it and go out and do something and they send me an email or call me up and say, that really worked, and then certainly the same thing, in the university environment. People are going to leave the university, they're going to go out in the big world, and I try to tell the students, think beyond just getting a good grade. I want to hear a year from now, 2 years from now, that you have done something incredibly marvelous because of what we did in this class. And I get that feedback, and it's the charge. It makes energy. It very positive energy.
And the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. How do you get higher contact center agent performance? It's when customers grade the call and their ratings and comments are used to motivate and coach agents. Uncover hidden secrets and replicate your best agents with the real-time insights from the award-winning external quality monitoring program from Customer Relationship Metrics. Move onward and upward by going to customersgradethecall.com/fast and getting a $7,500 rapid results package for free. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Jeff, the Hump Day Hoedown is the part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions, and your job is to give us robust yet rapid responses that are going to help us move onward and upward faster. Jeofrey Bean, are you ready to hoedown?
I am ready.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I think it's the time to meet other leaders and get insights from them, where we can learn from each other. I don't see where there's just a never-ending learning process. And so I'd like to meet more leaders, exchange insights and experience. I mean, could you imagine being able to just have all kinds of time to do that? I would love that.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
The best leadership advice I ever received is when I walked into the office of one of the best leaders I ever worked for, a fellow named Dave Marmonti, when I was working at AT&T. And he said, "What can I do for you?" and meant it. Okay. And I told him, I had some things that I needed help with on a project that affected him also, but more so, I said, "Well, here's exactly what you can do for me." I started to walk out of his office. He said, "Where are you going?" And he made me close the door, and right in front of me, made the calls, delivered the messages, gave me coaching. And 10 minutes later, I walked out and feeling like $1 million. And this guy was the real deal. He understood that it was to serve, in a good way, and by example from his behavior. Also, it was beyond that meeting, but that was a really powerful thing he said to me because he meant it. And he did it. So it was awesome.
What is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
I think providing for the long term an environment where people really, truly are free to express their ideas and concerns, and where you're listening. And here's an environment, whether it's at a company or a seminar or a classroom or just confiding with a friend. I think really, truly being able to deliver that, no penalties. As a matter of fact, we're going to gain from this by exchanging ideas. I think being able to genuinely provide that and be known for that is something that's been very special, I think.
What do you feel is one of your best tools that helps you lead in business or life?
I think it's understanding the diversity of opinions and ideas and disciplines. So, I love the fact that when you ask the same question to people from different places or from different backgrounds, to me, I want to be surprised by the different answers because I don't know it all.
What would be one book from any genre that you would recommend to our listeners?
I don't know. It's kind of a tie for me. I like Howard Schultz's book, where it's called Onward, and he's just an incredible leader and inspirational fellow. But I also like Don Norman's Design of Everyday Things. It's kind of a toss-up.
Okay, Fast Leader listeners, you can find links to that and other bonus information, which will include a free chapter from Jeff's book on the show notes page, which you'll be able to find at fastleader.net/Jeofrey Bean. Now, I want to make sure that everybody knows that Jeofrey Bean is spelled a little bit uniquely. It's Jeofrey. That's Jeofrey Bean. Okay, Jeff, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to go back to the age of 25, and you've been given the opportunity to take the knowledge and skills that you have now back with you, but you can't take it all. You can only take back one thing. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I think that it's understanding that being effective and efficient is more important than a whole bunch of other things. Just, you can know a bunch of things, but are you effective with that? And as a matter of fact, several CEOs have commented to me that they said, knowing things can be overrated if you can't be effective and efficient. And I said, absolutely. And as I'm, I don't know, you try to get more wisdom as you get older. And as I'm working on that, I think I'm realizing, being effective and efficient, it seems to be coming up as a priority more often. So if I was 25 and knew that, wow, I think that could make a big difference. That could be powerful.
Jeff, I think you just explained where the do for comes from.
Exactly.
Jeff, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Certainly. Thanks for having me on, Jim. I appreciate it. And you can check out my website at delmarresearch.com. Also, contact me by email, jbean@delmarresearch.com, or give me a call directly at 858-334-9266. Let's have a chat.
Jeofrey Bean, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. The Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Woo-hoo! Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.